It seems like the news only gets worse on the U.S. China trade relationship. Even the positive days seem like just head fakes for traders to take some gains. Where do you stand as far as your expectation and trading on this?
I'm very concerned about the development over the last 48 hours. It seems very clear to me that both the Chinese side and the U.S. side is ducking down and getting ready for an escalation. Yeah, I know that the fact that the Vice Premier Liu is coming not as a special envoy, but without the envoy status, meaning that the Chinese has already downgraded the talks before they even start. Out in China, there's also a rumor that they will leave early by leaving already Thursday night after the talks is over. The initial talks are over. So I'm very concerned because it seems to me both sides are playing a game of Mexican standoff in terms of the strategy here, and I don't see how they're going to come back to the table and actually get something. U.S. wants a big trade, China wants a small trade. No trade is probably the most likely thing.
Steen, good morning to you. It's fascinating, isn't it, how this started out quite narrowly around trade, and still any kind of trade agreement obviously remains elusive. But then in amongst all of this, over recent weeks, we've been talking about the possibility of a capital war. And now we seem to be edging into something of a culture war with the row that started in trade now spilling over into, NBA basketball, into the gaming culture. It does seem as if this is morphing into something bigger, and the bigger it gets, the harder and the harder it is to fix, the longer it takes to resolve.
I absolutely agree, and I think I'm very concerned about the new strategy from the White House, and it seems the hawks in the White House, which is to go after specific areas to make it more targeted. It seems to be a change of strategy by the U.S. side. And the reason for that leaves some concern with me, of course, is that it has far bigger ramification. It directly hits individuals, it directly hits companies, and it is a very, very strong escalation of what goes on. Because as long as we're talking macro sort of environment, tariffs and everything else, it's more generic in nature. Now we have almost, a specialized, itemized list of things that they attack each other on, or at least is trying to get in the way of each other with, and that really concerns me. And I think the market is trading remarkably well considering all of this nervousness, and to some extent, of course, being who I am in terms of the market, that is really giving me a lot of concerns for the downside here.
You do think, though, that President Trump is going to want to come back with a deal before the November elections next year. At what point, Steen, do you think it's a good idea to go in and buy to sort of place that bet?
Yeah, so this, Matt, is clearly a trade that is this summer next year. I think the trade will be on and off all that time if it doesn't break altogether down already this week. But it will be kept alive. It will be sort of kept all the way through until he needs to come out and say, I have a deal with the Chinese, which, of course, in essence, will be a no deal. But I'm absolutely certain that anything that happens in terms of trade, in terms of U.S. politics, will be in the context of getting Trump reelected or whoever is his opponent in that race. So we will suck all the air out of fundamentals. We'll suck all the air out of the ability of the market to actually navigate relatively to earnings and everything else. We will be waiting day by day to see tweets, to see updates on what is the next step up or step down in terms of these trade talks, unfortunately.